Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Friday, June the 2nd. Starting off with Memorial Cup discussion. First off, I'd like to apologize to Kamloops Blazers fans. So what happened was, I'm watching, whatever on TV, and then I see online that the game has gone into overtime. And I thought, well, that'll be kind of fun. Pete's and Blazers overtime. The winner gets to play Seattle. Sure, this should be a fun game to watch. So I turned it on. At the time, Kamloops generating opportunities. Then the puck gets turned over, and the Pete scored. So that was within maybe a minute and a half of me turning the game on. So I would like to apologize to Kamloops fans everywhere. I might be the reason you guys are out. Remember, I am a jinx. I have the hockey powers. So, J.R. Avon, one of the best names I've ever seen, period, done. Want him with the team that I cheer for. Scored the winner at 10:54 of overtime. And so, yeah, the thing with this one, too, was the Blazers led 4-1 in the second period. They had this thing locked down. I'm sure fans were really excited for how well they were playing, and then the Petes came back and ended up winning. So they face Seattle today. The winner of today's game will face the Quebec Ramparts on Sunday in the Memorial Cup final, which I do intend to watch and do a recap of. That's my intention at this point in time. But again, I'd like to apologize to Blazers fans everywhere. You guys are the hosts. It was very rude of me to turn the game on when I did and make that goal happen. Because I just said to Yvonne, I was like, well, this could go on for a bit, I guess. And then, nope. So yeah, totally on me. All right, so Utah Jazz owner Ryan Smith, no relation to the Ryan Smith of Edmonton Oilers fame, of course, had dinner with Gary Bettman on Tuesday. And apparently, he's interested in joining the National Hockey League, and the NHL is interested in his money. That appears to be what the situation is right now. And of course, Salt Lake City would love to have a National Hockey League team. Apparently, Ryan Smith's been pushing for this for a while now. And they would likely need a new arena. So, Vivint Arena is not optimal for watching hockey. You have it's set up for basketball, so your sight lines aren't going to work. Getting a full NHL arena in there and all the amenities, in all likelihood, they would probably need a new arena. You could play in Vivint Arena for a while, I guess. But the reality is they would probably need a brand new arena to make it work in Salt Lake City. That being said, they're seen as a favorite to host the 2030 Olympics. So there could be a tie-in. There could be a future there. NHL to Salt Lake City in 2030, anybody? We'll see. But again, the NHL willing to talk to people with money. We know that with the Houston situation as well, that they're willing to meet with guys who have $1 billion or more. So I know that's one of those locations that people have asked me about for years. Could you see a team in Salt Lake City? The answer is always the same. Is there somebody with a lot of money that wants a team there? And if the answer is yes, then sure, that can work. It's something that Kansas City, all these other locations you want to throw out there, Milwaukee, you need that person with a lot of money. You need corporations that are going to buy the luxury suites and all that. You need all the revenues and all the incomes, as I talked about in a video earlier today already. Keep in mind that expansion fees go directly to the owners. The players do not take half of that revenue. That is entirely for the owners only. That was enshrined in the last CBA. And as I've said in recent videos as well, I don't think you enshrine that in a CBA just for one expansion. I think the idea is, we could expand again. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Michael Pezzetta has signed a 2-year extension with the Montreal Canadiens. The cap hit is $812,500 per year. That's very reasonable. Bottom six forward, good energy guy. And I think quite popular with Montreal, with both fans, players, coaches, everybody appreciating his work ethic. So, yeah, Pezzetta's got some job security there. Now, there is no job security at this point for Patrick Kane, and he's out 4 to 6 months. Now, I mentioned this in yesterday's free agent video as well. He had hip resurfacing surgery. So, this again, when a guy has hip resurfacing surgery, they're usually less effective when they come back, and their careers tend to be pretty short if they come back as well. So this is something that may very well cause teams to maybe take a step back on Kane. Maybe we don't see him sign until the fall. Maybe it's going to be a situation where until we know the exact return date and what kind of shape he's in. Maybe they wait, or maybe he does sign July 1st and the team crosses their fingers. But this should cause the offers to probably be a little bit lower than they would have been. And the interesting thing too is that Kane has downplayed his hip problems for at least a year. At least a year I've been reporting on him. At least it feels like a year I've been reporting on him downplaying concerns over his hip. I know during the season that was discussed as being an issue that was causing his production to drop, and he basically said no, he works through it, and it's not as bad as what people were saying, but it has to be pretty bad if you have hip resurfacing surgery. So all the best to Kane in his recovery, and we'll see where he ends up landing in July or maybe in October. Again, he may end up being without a contract for a bit because we are in a flat cap situation, and the amount of money he's going to want still probably going to be pretty high unless he gives a sweetheart deal to a team like Tampa, signs there for like $1 million, that kind of thing. So we'll see what he does, and we'll see what teams do. This is an interesting UFA market in that Kane's the biggest name on it, but again, it's name recognition, right? It's not necessarily the player he is now. And this surgery, personally, if I was a GM, I don't know that I'd put an offer out there because you don't know when he's going to come back or for how long. Now, moving on to other news, the Senators, who still do not have a new owner, but there were rumors that one of the bids was falling out, and immediately that became a non-story in that, yep, all 4 bids are still live, so we're still in the same situation, and Bruce Garriock, I guess on Monday, gets to retweet the same thing again of, this is the week we should see a new owner for the Ottawa Senators. So in the midst of all this, Pierre Dorion wants to sign DeBrincat. Now, I don't know that the ownership situation would have any effect on DeBrincat's wanting to stick around. But yeah, there's definitely interest in Ottawa in signing him. But Dorion's also willing to listen to offers should they come in, and keeping his mind open on what the future is going to be with DeBrincat. They brought him in a year ago. I think it was a solid trade option for Ottawa to do that. And while his goal scoring wasn't as robust in Ottawa as it was in Chicago, it was pretty good by the end of the year. And it would be interesting to see in a second season what kind of numbers DeBrincat would put up. But again, it's kind of in his hands at this point. We'll see if he wants to stay long-term in Ottawa. Brad Treliving, in his presser yesterday, stated his first priority is talking to Austin Matthews and going forward from there. And I agree with that. You want to get an actual gauge. So Matthews has said publicly he wants to stay in Toronto. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that if he has a discussion with Treliving that it wouldn't be a little bit different. I'm not saying he's going to say, oh, I want out. But it may be, okay, if these things happen, I'll stick around. They may get into numbers. It may be I'm looking at for the next contract, maybe. And keep in mind that when his contract expires next year, we're looking at a salary cap going up by maybe as much as $5-6 million or more per team. So Matthews and other free agents next year will really have the opportunity to sign pretty expensive contracts. And that salary cap should start going up a lot, starting with next summer and then beyond that as well. So Matthews is in the driver's seat here. If Treliving can't talk Matthews into sticking around, after what happened in Calgary with Gaudreau and with Tkachuk, I don't think he's going to mess around. I don't think he's going to take the chance on that happening again under his watch. Like, can you imagine next summer if Matthews just left? So I can't see Treliving putting himself in that situation. He's going to want to put a pen to paper and get things figured out with Matthews. And in the event Matthews says, I don't know, I think I'd want to go somewhere else, maybe he ends up being a deadline move for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maybe he gets moved even before the season gets started. Again, it really depends on what Treliving does here and how just absolutely bonkers he wants to make things. I do think this offseason, Winnipeg could be the team that makes the biggest seismic shift, in that Hellebuck could be out there, Scheifele, Wheeler could be out there. And so there's various pieces that could get moved off that team. But yeah, Toronto, don't rule out the idea of there being some explosive deal for Toronto. They know they need to make changes, that fans aren't happy with one round being won since 2004. So we'll see what happens. AHL news from last night. The Milwaukee Admirals, they tie the series. They won 5-2 against Coachella Valley. So the series is 2-2 between the Admirals and the Firebirds. And yeah, we'll see how that one turns out. But that one's going for a bit. Of course, Rochester with the win the other night, they kept themselves in that series with Hershey. We'll see if they can do the same and force a Game 7 or if Hershey can close it out. And if you're an ECHL fan, Florida versus Idaho, Game 1 is tomorrow. This is a series that starts in Idaho for the first 2 and then moves to Florida for the next 3, and then Games 6 and 7 are in Idaho. So it's the 2-3-2 format. I've seen people say the NHL should adopt that format. They did. It lasted a year. It did not stick around, and I can't see the NHL going back to it. Only because the team that's on the road for the first 2 games, all they have to do is get a split and then not lose at home, and the series is done. So I can't see the NHL going to that kind of setup, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.